Hashtag the jungle was invaded by alien strike teams. Then, the no-call-sign sniper arrived. Hashtag story part 1. The morning mist hung thick over the Amazon rainforest like a gray blanket, muffling the usual symphony of bird calls and insect chatter. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her back against the massive cecropia tree, her heart hammering against her ribs as she clutched the emergency beacon in her sweaty palm. The research station lay in ruins 3 kilometers behind her, smoke still rising from what had been her life's work just 6 hours ago. She had been cataloging nocturnal moth species when the sky lit up with streaks of purple fire. At first, she thought it might be a meteor shower, something spectacular to photograph for her research journal. Then, the explosion started. The ground shook so violently that her equipment cabinet toppled over, scattering delicate specimens across the floor like confetti at a nightmare party. Through the station's reinforced windows, Elena had watched in horror as sleek, angular craft descended through the canopy. They moved with impossible silence, their hulls shimmering like oil on water. When the first beam of crimson light sliced through the trees 50 meters from her station, vaporizing a centuries-old mahogany in an instant, she knew this wasn't any human technology. The creatures that emerged from the vessels defied every assumption Elena had about intelligent life. They stood nearly 3 meters tall on 4 articulated legs that bent in ways that hurt to watch. Their torsos were elongated and covered in what looked like living armor that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Most disturbing were their heads, if they could be called heads, which appeared to be clusters of sensory organs arranged around a central feeding apparatus that clicked and whirred constantly. Elena had managed to grab her emergency kit and slip out the station's rear exit while the aliens were focused on methodically destroying the main research building. She'd been running through the jungle ever since, following animal trails and stream beds, trying to put as much distance as possible between herself and whatever those things were doing. Now, as she fumbled with the beacon's activation sequence, she wondered if anyone would even believe her distress signal. The device was supposed to contact the nearest military installation, but what could human soldiers do against technology that could erase trees from existence? A sound made her freeze, a rhythmic thumping that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Through the thick canopy above, she could see flashes of that same purple light that had announced the aliens' arrival. They were conducting some kind of systematic search pattern, methodically working their way through the forest. Elena activated the beacon and whispered into its microphone. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez at Research Station Alpha 7. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. I repeat, unknown hostiles have destroyed our facility and are conducting search operations in the surrounding area. I am the only known survivor. Please send immediate military assistance." The beacon's display showed her message had been transmitted, but the response channel remained silent. Elena stuffed the device into her backpack and began moving again, following a game trail that led deeper into the jungle's heart. 3,000 kilometers away, in a classified facility buried beneath the Andes Mountains, Elena's message triggered a cascade of alerts that reached the desk of Colonel James Morrison within minutes. Morrison had been expecting something like this, though he'd hoped he was wrong. The preliminary satellite data from the Amazon had been disturbing enough. Energy signatures that didn't match any known human technology, followed by what appeared to be controlled deforestation in a perfect geometric pattern. Morrison picked up his secure phone and dialed a number that existed in no official directory. After 3 rings, a gravelly voice answered with a simple yes. "We have a situation," Morrison said. "The Amazon. It started." "How many?" the voice asked. "Unknown. Preliminary estimates suggest a full invasion force. We have 1 confirmed civilian survivor requesting immediate assistance." There was a long pause. Morrison could hear wind in the background, suggesting the man was outdoors somewhere. "I'll need transport to the nearest airfield," the voice said finally. "Already arranged. There's a helicopter en route to your position. ETA 12 minutes. Equipment. Full tactical loadout waiting at the airfield, plus anything else you might need. The budget is unlimited on this one." "Understood." The line went dead. Morrison leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. In 30 years of military service, he had never made a call like that before. The man on the other end had no name in any official capacity, no rank, no unit designation. The military databases simply listed him as Asset 47, with a classification level that required presidential authorization to access. What Morrison knew about Asset 47 could fit on a single page. Former military, though which branch remained classified. Psychological profile indicated severe antisocial tendencies, combined with an unusual capacity for violence and an almost supernatural skill with long-range weapons. He had been operating independently for nearly 8 years, taking on missions that official military units couldn't or wouldn't handle. The man had no call sign because he had never officially existed. High above the Amazon basin, Captain Lisa Chun adjusted the controls of her modified C-130 transport aircraft as she monitored the approach to the improvised landing strip. The strip had been carved out of the jungle just 18 months ago as part of a classified military project that Chun wasn't supposed to know about. But when you flew supply runs to places that didn't officially exist, you learned to stop asking questions. Her cargo bay held enough firepower to level a small city. Sniper rifles in calibers that most people couldn't even pronounce, ammunition designed to punch through vehicle armor, and electronic surveillance equipment that belonged in science fiction movies. All of it requisitioned under emergency protocols that bypassed normal military procurement channels. Chun had been told to expect 1 passenger for the return flight, but she'd been given no other details. When she saw the lone figure walking across the crewed airstrip, she understood why the briefing had been so sparse. The man moved with the fluid economy of motion that only came from years of combat experience. He was tall, but not exceptionally so, with the kind of lean build that suggested endurance rather than raw strength. His face was weathered and unremarkable except for his eyes, which seemed to catalog everything in their field of vision with mechanical precision. He boarded the aircraft without speaking to Chun or her crew, disappearing into the cargo bay with his equipment. Chun received clearance for immediate takeoff and banked the aircraft toward the Amazon basin. Her flight plan called for a low-altitude approach to avoid civilian radar, followed by a halo jump over coordinates that intelligence suggested were near the alien landing site. In the cargo bay, the unnamed sniper methodically checked his equipment. The rifle he had selected was a custom-built weapon chambered for .338 Lapua Magnum, capable of accurate shots at ranges exceeding 2 kilometers. The scope mounted on top could switch between traditional optical magnification and thermal imaging, with an integrated ballistic computer that could calculate wind drift and bullet drop in real time. But the rifle was just one tool among many. He also carried a collection of smaller weapons, electronic surveillance devices, and enough supplies to operate independently for 2 weeks. Most importantly, he carried something that no amount of military hardware could replicate: 8 years of experience hunting targets that conventional forces couldn't touch. The sniper had earned his reputation by taking impossible shots under impossible conditions. A terrorist leader eliminated at 2,200 meters through a sandstorm in Afghanistan. A weapons dealer killed through the bulletproof windshield of a moving vehicle in Somalia. A corrupt general assassinated in his own bedroom through a window that should have been impossible to access. Each mission had required not just exceptional marksmanship, but the ability to think 3 moves ahead of targets who knew they were being hunted. The sniper didn't just kill people. He solved problems that entire military units couldn't handle. Now, he faced a new kind of problem. The preliminary intelligence reports described technology and tactics that didn't fit any known parameters. The aliens appeared to be conducting some kind of systematic resource extraction operation, using energy weapons that could vaporize organic matter instantly. Their search patterns suggested a level of tactical sophistication that human forces had never encountered. As the C-130 approached the drop zone, the sniper reviewed satellite images of the alien landing site. The creatures had established what appeared to be a forward operating base in a clearing they had created by destroying roughly 10 hectares of rainforest. Geometric patterns in the deforestation suggested they were following some kind of predetermined plan rather than simply clearing space for their operations. More troubling were the heat signatures that suggested significant underground construction. The aliens weren't just visiting, they were building something permanent. The sniper clipped his parachute harness and moved toward the aircraft's rear door. Through his headset, he heard Captain Chen's voice, 2 minutes to drop zone. Weather conditions are acceptable, but Thermal imaging shows significant alien activity throughout the target area. Be advised that extraction options are limited. The sniper keyed his microphone once to acknowledge, then cut the comm channel. He preferred to work without chatter from distant command centers. When the red light above the door turned green, he stepped into the humid Amazon night and began his descent toward a war zone that officially didn't exist. Far below, Dr. Elena Vasquez huddled in a makeshift shelter she had constructed from fallen logs and palm fronds. The alien search patterns had been growing more intense throughout the day, with their strange flying craft passing overhead every few minutes. She had heard explosions in the distance, suggesting they were destroying more of the forest as they expanded their operations. Elena checked her water supply and tried to calculate how long she could survive in the jungle without proper equipment. Her emergency rations would last maybe 3 more days, and her water purification tablets were already running low. Even if the military responded to her beacon, she wasn't sure they would be able to find her before dehydration or exposure became critical factors. A new sound made her press closer to the ground. This one was different from the alien craft, a deeper, more mechanical rumble that seemed familiar somehow. Elena risked a glimpse through her shelter's camouflage and saw something that made her heart race with hope. A human aircraft was passing overhead, flying so low that she could make out individual rivets on its hull. As she watched, a figure detach from the plane and deployed a parachute, descending toward the alien-controlled territory with the precision of a military operation. Elena grabbed her emergency beacon and tried to establish contact with the aircraft, but received only static. Whoever had just jumped into the jungle was operating under complete radio silence. She made a decision that she knew might be suicidal. She would try to make contact with the mystery operative before the aliens found either of them. As Elena gathered her meager supplies and prepared to move through the dangerous jungle night, she had no way of knowing that she had just witnessed the arrival of the most dangerous human being on the planet. The No-Callsign sniper touched down in a small clearing 2 kilometers from the alien base, his parachute automatically detaching and dissolving as programmed. He buried the harness components and began moving through the jungle with the silent efficiency of a predator returning to familiar territory. The Amazon rainforest was not foreign ground for him. 3 years earlier, he had spent 6 weeks hunting an arms dealer who had been using the jungle as a base for distributing weapons throughout South America. The sniper knew how to read the forest's moods, how to distinguish natural sounds from artificial ones, and, most importantly, how to use the jungle's density and complexity as a weapon against enemies who weren't adapted to its challenges. As he approached the perimeter of alien operations, the sniper began to understand the scope of the invasion. The preliminary satellite intelligence had been incomplete. The aliens weren't just establishing a single forward base. They were creating an interconnected network of facilities that stretched across nearly 50 square kilometers of rainforest. Through his rifle scope, he observed alien patrols moving through the jungle with disturbing coordination. They seemed to communicate through some kind of bioluminescent signaling system, with patterns of light pulsing along their armor in complex sequences. Their search techniques were methodical and thorough, suggesting they had specific objectives rather than random exploration goals. The sniper settled into a concealed position on a ridge that overlooked one of the main alien transit routes and began the careful process of selecting his first target. In conventional warfare, the primary goal of a sniper was to eliminate high-value targets. Officers, communication specialists, or technical experts whose deaths would disrupt enemy operations. But these weren't conventional enemies. The sniper had no way to distinguish alien leadership from regular troops, and their technology was so advanced that destroying individual units might not have any significant impact on their overall capabilities. Instead, he decided to focus on gathering intelligence while looking for tactical opportunities. Every shot had to count, because once he revealed his position, the aliens would adapt their operations to counter the threat he represented. As the sniper watched alien patrols through his scope, he began to notice something interesting. Despite their advanced technology and obvious tactical sophistication, the aliens seemed to have one crucial weakness. They appeared to rely heavily on their energy weapons and had no apparent backup systems for situations where those weapons might not be effective. More importantly, Their search patterns suggested they were looking for something specific in the jungle, not simply conducting random destruction. The sniper began to form a hypothesis about what that something might be, and if he was correct, Dr. Elena Vasquez might be more important to this conflict than anyone realized. The hunt was about to begin, and for the first time in years, the no-call-sign sniper found himself facing prey that might actually be worthy of his skills. In the alien command center, built into a massive tree that had been hollowed out and transformed into a technological fortress, the mission commander reviewed the day's progress with growing frustration. The harvesting operations were proceeding according to schedule, but the loss of the human research facility had created an unexpected complication. The facility's destruction had been necessary to prevent the humans from documenting the invasion, but preliminary analysis suggested that one of the research subjects had escaped with potentially valuable genetic samples. The missing human female had to be located and eliminated before she could contaminate the harvesting project with her presence. The commander activated the next phase of search operations, deploying additional reconnaissance units throughout the surrounding forest. What the alien intelligence had failed to understand was that by making Elena Vasquez a priority target, they had just guaranteed that the most dangerous human hunter in existence would be coming for them. The game had begun, and neither side fully understood what they were up against. /# the jungle invasion. Story Part 2, the first alien patrol died without ever knowing they were being hunted. The no-call-sign sniper had been tracking the 4-member unit for nearly 2 hours, learning their movement patterns and communication methods. The aliens moved in a diamond formation with the lead scout maintaining a steady pace, while the others provided overlapping fields of fire. Their coordination was impressive, but they had made one critical error. They were following human-made trails instead of creating their own paths through the jungle. Human trails meant human thinking, and human thinking was something the sniper understood better than anyone alive. He positioned himself at a natural choke point where the trail narrowed between two massive buttress roots, giving him clear lines of sight while remaining completely concealed beneath a fallen log that had been hollowed out by termites decades ago. The aliens' energy weapons might be able to vaporize trees, but they would have to know where to shoot first. The sniper had chosen his ammunition carefully. Standard military rounds might not be effective against alien armor, but the custom projectiles he carried had been designed for a different purpose entirely. Each bullet contained a dense tungsten core surrounded by a thermobaric charge that would detonate after penetration, creating devastating internal damage regardless of external protection. When the lead scout passed within 50 meters of his position, the sniper made his first observation that would change everything he understood about the enemy. The aliens' bioluminescent communication patterns weren't just tactical signals. They were displaying emotional states. The creature was nervous, its armor patterns shifting between amber and deep red in ways that suggested anxiety or fear. These things weren't emotionless killing machines. They could be afraid, which meant they could be broken. The sniper waited until all 4 aliens were within his predetermined kill zone, then fired his first shot. The tungsten round took the rear guard's center mass, punching through its armor and detonating inside its torso cavity. The alien collapsed without making a sound, its bioluminescent patterns fading to black. The remaining 3 aliens reacted with impressive speed, dropping into defensive positions and scanning the jungle for threats. But their training had prepared them for conventional warfare, not asymmetric hunting tactics. While they searched for a traditional enemy position, the sniper was already moving to his second firing point 30 meters away. His second shot took the unit's communication specialist, identifiable by the more complex antenna arrays protruding from its helmet. The round severed the creature's primary sensory cluster, sending it into wild convulsions before it died. The remaining 2 aliens began firing randomly into the jungle, their energy weapons carving smoking channels through the vegetation. The sniper smiled grimly as he watched them waste their ammunition on shadows. Panic was setting in, exactly as he had hoped. These creatures might have superior technology, but they were still bound by the same psychological limitations that affected every intelligent species under stress. His third shot was deliberately non-lethal. He aimed for the lead scout's primary weapon, destroying the energy projector in a shower of sparks and exotic matter. The alien threw down the useless weapon and began a tactical retreat, calling for reinforcements through whatever communication systems it had remaining. The sniper let it run. One terrified survivor would carry his message back to the alien command structure. There was something hunting them in the jungle, something that could kill them without warning and disappear like smoke. As he recovered his spent casings and began moving to his next position, the sniper reflected on what he had learned from the engagement. The aliens were tactically competent, but not tactically innovative. They relied heavily on their superior firepower and had difficulty adapting when that advantage was neutralized. Most importantly, they were psychologically vulnerable to the kind of fear-based warfare that he specialized in. But they were also learning. The next patrol would be larger and better prepared. The sniper would need to escalate his tactics accordingly. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been following the sounds of alien weapons fire through the jungle, staying far enough back to avoid detection, but close enough to observe their search patterns. When she heard the different sound of conventional gunfire, she knew that someone was fighting back against the invaders. Elena had a PhD in xenobiology and had spent her career studying how different species adapted to environmental challenges. What she was witnessing now was adaptation in real time. Two intelligent species learning each other's capabilities through lethal trial and error. She reached the site of the skirmish 20 minutes after the shooting stopped. 3 alien corpses lay scattered across the forest floor. Their exotic armor split open to reveal internal structures that defied everything Elena thought she knew about anatomy. The aliens appeared to have distributed nervous systems, with neural clusters located throughout their torsos rather than centralized brains. They also had redundant organ systems that suggested they had evolved in an environment with significant predation pressure. Elena carefully documented what she could see with her emergency camera, taking detailed photos of the alien technology and biology. This information might be crucial for understanding how to fight these creatures effectively. As she worked, she noticed something that made her hands shake with excitement. The alien armor wasn't purely technological. It was partially biological, with living tissue integrated seamlessly into mechanical components. This wasn't just advanced engineering. It was biotechnological fusion at a level that human science couldn't even imagine. Elena collected tissue samples from the least damaged corpse, storing them in the sample containers she had grabbed from a research station. If she could get these specimens to a proper laboratory, human scientists might be able to develop countermeasures against the alien technology. A sound made her freeze, the soft whisper of something moving through the jungle with predatory stealth. Elena pressed herself against a tree trunk and tried to control her breathing as footsteps approached the battle site. The man who emerged from the jungle was unlike anyone Elena had ever encountered. He moved with the fluid precision of an apex predator, his eyes constantly scanning for threats while his hands never moved far from his weapons. He examined the alien corpses with professional detachment, taking measurements and photographs with equipment that looked more advanced than anything in Elena's research kit. When he finally noticed Elena's hiding place, their eyes met across the small clearing. For a long moment, neither moved. Elena could see intelligence in the man's gaze, but also something that made her grateful they were on the same side. This was a person who had killed frequently and without remorse. Dr. Vasquez, the sniper said quietly, his voice carrying easily across the clearing despite its low volume. "I've been looking for you." Elena stepped out from behind the tree, her hands visible and empty. "Are you military? I'm the person who's going to get you out of here alive." He gestured toward the alien corpses. "You've been collecting samples." It wasn't a question. Elena nodded and showed him the specimen containers. "These creatures aren't purely technological. Their armor appears to be a biomechanical hybrid. If we can understand how it functions, we can find ways to kill them more efficiently," the sniper finished. "Good thinking. But collecting samples won't matter if we don't survive long enough to deliver them." Elena studied the man more carefully. He carried himself like a soldier, but there was something different about his gear and demeanor that suggested he operated outside normal military channels. "What's the plan?" "Short term. Keep moving and avoid the search patrols. They're expanding their operational area by approximately 2 kilometers every 6 hours. Long term. Find their command center and disrupt their operations long enough for military reinforcements to arrive." You're planning to attack their base? There must be hundreds of them. The sniper shouldered his rifle and began moving toward the jungle perimeter. I don't attack bases, Dr. Vasquez. I hunt individual targets until the enemy's command structure collapses. It's more efficient. Elena hurried to keep up with his pace as they moved deeper into the forest. You're talking about assassination. I'm talking about warfare. These things invaded Earth and killed innocent people. That makes them legitimate military targets. The sniper paused at a stream crossing and checked his navigation equipment. Your research station. How many people died? 12, Elena said quietly. My entire research team. Then, this is personal for both of us. As they continued through the jungle, Elena began to understand that she was traveling with someone who approached warfare as a science rather than an art. He read the forest like a textbook, identifying alien patrol routes and establishing fallback positions with mechanical precision. Every decision seemed calculated to maximize their survival while gathering intelligence about enemy capabilities. Why are they so interested in capturing me specifically? Elena asked during a rest stop beside a natural spring. You're asking the wrong question, the sniper replied as he refilled his water containers. The better question is what they're doing here in the first place. This isn't a conquest operation. It's a harvesting mission. Elena considered this. Harvesting what? That's what we're going to find out. 3 kilometers away, the alien patrol commander studied the remains of his advanced reconnaissance unit with growing concern. The tactical analysis was troubling. Each kill shot had been precisely placed to cause maximum damage while conserving ammunition. The unknown human sniper was demonstrating capabilities that suggested extensive combat experience against technologically superior opponents. More concerning were the biological samples that had been harvested from the corpses. The human scientist was not just documenting the invasion. She was actively studying alien technology for potential countermeasures. The research data in her possession could prove catastrophic if it reached human military analysts. The commander activated the priority communication channel and transmitted his assessment to the central command node. The response was immediate. All units were to shift to active hunting mode. The human sniper and the scientist had to be eliminated before they could compromise the harvesting operation. Within minutes, 12 additional patrol units were deploying throughout the search area, each equipped with enhanced sensor arrays and heavy weapons designed to neutralize hardened defensive positions. The aliens were done playing games. In the command center, the mission leader reviewed the tactical reports with increasing frustration. The harvesting operation had been proceeding flawlessly until the humans had begun their resistance activities. Now precious resources were being diverted from collection duties to deal with 2 individuals who should have been eliminated in the initial bombardment. The mission leader activated the strategic communication array and transmitted a request for additional resources. The response from the home system would take several hours to arrive, but reinforcements were probably unnecessary. How much damage could 2 humans possibly inflict against a fully operational invasion force? It was exactly the kind of underestimation that the No-Callsign sniper had built his reputation on exploiting. As Elena and the sniper moved through the jungle night, they began to encounter evidence of the aliens' true purpose on Earth. Large sections of forest have been systematically stripped of all plant and animal life, leaving behind sterile clearings where nothing would grow. The soil itself appeared to have been processed with strange geometric patterns carved into the earth that suggested some kind of extraction process. They're mining, Elena realized as they observed one of the harvested areas from a concealed position. But not for minerals. They're harvesting biological material. The sniper studied the clearing through his rifle scope. Any idea why? Elena examined the soil patterns more carefully. Genetic diversity, maybe. Earth's biosphere is incredibly rich compared to most planets. They might be collecting samples for their own biotechnological development. Or they're preparing to terraform this planet for their own use, the sniper suggested grimly. Strip away the existing ecosystem and replace it with something more suitable for their biology. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the humid jungle air. If that's true, then this isn't just an invasion. It's an extinction event. The sniper lowered his scope and looked directly at Elena. Then, we'd better make sure they don't succeed. As they prepared to move deeper into alien-controlled territory, Neither of them realized that they had just been marked for termination by every alien unit within 100 kilometers. The hunt was about to become significantly more dangerous for everyone involved. The no-call-sign sniper checked his ammunition count and began planning his next series of strikes. He had enough rounds for perhaps 20 more engagements, which meant every shot would have to advance their tactical situation. The aliens were adapting to his methods, but adaptation worked both ways. It was time to teach them that humans could evolve too, and much faster than they anticipated. Hashtag the jungle invasion. Story part 3: The aliens adapted faster than the sniper had anticipated. The next patrol he encountered moved in a completely different formation, with overlapping sensor sweeps and counter-sniper protocols that suggested they had analyzed his previous attacks and developed specific countermeasures. Instead of following predictable paths, they were creating new routes through the jungle using controlled detonations to clear vegetation, making it impossible for him to pre-position for ambush attacks. Worse, they had brought heavier weapons. The energy projectors on their new equipment could cut through tree trunks 3 meters in diameter, effectively eliminating most of the cover that had made his previous attacks possible. The sniper watched from a concealed position as a 12-member alien patrol systematically destroyed potential sniper positions along a 2-kilometer stretch of jungle. "They're learning," Elena whispered from beside him. "That's remarkable adaptation speed for an invasion force." "It's also a problem," the sniper replied quietly. "If they can adapt this quickly to individual tactics, conventional military forces won't stand a chance against them." Elena studied the alien patrol through her binoculars. Their search patterns are becoming more sophisticated too. Look at how they're coordinating their movements. Each unit is covering gaps that the others can't observe directly. It's like watching a distributed intelligence system in action. The sniper had reached the same conclusion. These weren't individual soldiers following orders from a distant commander. They appear to be operating as components of a larger tactical organism, sharing information and adapting their behavior in real time. Killing individual aliens wouldn't just reduce their numbers. It would force the entire group to evolve new strategies to compensate for the losses. "We need a different approach," he said, shouldering his rifle and beginning to move away from the patrol search area. "Instead of hunting individual targets, we need to disrupt their command and control systems." Elena followed him through the dense undergrowth, careful not to disturb the vegetation in ways that might leave obvious trails. "Do you have a plan?" "I'm working on it. But first, we need to understand how their communication systems function." The sniper led them to a natural observation post on a ridge overlooking the main alien base. "Your biological expertise might be more useful than my marksmanship skills for this phase." Elena examined the alien base through the sniper's high-powered scope. The facility had grown significantly since her first glimpse during the initial invasion. What had been a simple clearing was now a complex of interconnected structures that seemed to pulse with organic patterns. The buildings themselves appeared to be partially alive, with surfaces that shifted and adapted to changing conditions. "It's incredible," she breathed. "They're not just using biotechnology, they're growing their infrastructure. Those buildings are living organisms that have been modified to serve specific functions." The sniper adjusted the scope's magnification and focused on the movement patterns of aliens throughout the base. "Can you identify any kind of central nervous system? Something that coordinates all this activity?" Elena studied the base more carefully, paying attention to the way individuals moved and interacted. After several minutes, she began to notice subtle patterns in the bioluminescent communications that had escaped her earlier observations. "There," she said, pointing to a massive, tree-like structure at the center of the base. "That's not just a building, it's a neural hub. See how all the communication patterns flow toward it? And the way other aliens defer to individuals who emerge from that structure." The sniper focused on the central tree and immediately understood what Elena had identified. The structure was roughly 40 meters tall and covered in the same bioluminescent patterns that decorated alien armor, but the light patterns were far more complex and seemed to coordinate the activities throughout the entire base. "That's our target," he said. "Disrupt that communication hub, and we might be able to create enough chaos for military forces to have a fighting chance." Elena lowered the binoculars and looked at him with concern. You're talking about a suicide mission. That facility is protected by hundreds of alien soldiers. Not soldiers, the sniper corrected. Components. And every distributed system has vulnerabilities that can be exploited by someone who understands the underlying architecture. As they observed the base, Elena began to notice something else that caught her attention. The harvesting operation isn't random, she said. They're collecting specific genetic sequences. Look at the patterns in the cleared areas. They're targeting biodiversity hotspots, where evolutionary pressure has created the most complex genetic combinations. The sniper studied the harvesting patterns Elena had identified. They're not just strip mining the ecosystem. They're performing selective breeding on a planetary scale. Exactly. And if I'm right about their biotechnology integration, they're probably planning to use Earth's genetic material to enhance their own biology. This isn't invasion for territorial expansion. It's invasion for evolutionary advantage. The implications were staggering. If the aliens succeeded in their harvesting operation, they would return to their home system with genetic resources that could transform their entire species. Earth wouldn't just lose its biosphere. It would provide the aliens with the biological tools needed to conquer other worlds more effectively. How long do you think we have before their harvesting operation is complete? The sniper asked. Elena calculated the rate of environmental destruction she had observed. Based on their current efficiency, maybe 6 days before they've extracted everything they need from this region. After that, they'll probably move on to other biodiversity hotspots around the planet. Then, we need to stop them here, the sniper said grimly. If they establish this pattern, conventional military forces will always be one step behind their operations. Elena examined their tactical situation more carefully. What kind of support can we expect from human forces? Limited. Military command is treating this as a regional incident until they understand the full scope of the alien capabilities. We're essentially operating independently until we can provide them with actionable intelligence. So it's just us against an entire invasion force. It's been worse odds before, the sniper said with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. Although not by much. As they prepared to move closer to the alien base, Elena realized that she was about to participate in the kind of operation that would either save human civilization or get them both killed in spectacular fashion. The man beside her seemed completely comfortable with those stakes, which was either reassuring or terrifying, depending on how she chose to look at it. The sniper was already formulating his attack plan. The central communication hub would be heavily defended, but it would also be the aliens' primary vulnerability. If he could find a way to damage or destroy the neural coordination system, the entire base would likely descend into chaos as individual aliens lost their connection to the larger tactical organism. But getting close enough to attack the hub would require them to penetrate multiple layers of alien security while avoiding detection by sensors that could probably identify human biochemistry from considerable distances. It would require stealth techniques that pushed beyond conventional military training into something closer to magic. Fortunately, the sniper had spent years perfecting exactly those kinds of impossible approaches. Dr. Vasquez, he said as they began moving toward the base perimeter, how much do you know about alien sensory capabilities? From my observations, they appear to have enhanced electromagnetic perception and possibly chemical sensors that can detect specific pheromone signatures. Why? Because we're going to need to become invisible to all of those systems simultaneously. Elena looked at the sniper with growing concern. How exactly do you plan to accomplish that? The sniper pulled a collection of small devices from his equipment pack. Electromagnetic scramblers, biochemical suppressors, and thermal dampeners. Military technology designed for operations against sensor systems we don't fully understand. You came prepared for alien invasion. I came prepared for anything that might require unconventional solutions. The sniper began attaching the devices to both their equipment sets. The fact that our targets happen to be extraterrestrial is just another operational parameter. As they approached the outer perimeter of the alien base, Elena began to appreciate the scope of the challenge they were facing. The facility wasn't just heavily defended. It was actively patrolled by creatures whose sensory capabilities far exceeded human norms. Avoiding detection would require perfect execution of techniques that neither of them had ever tested under actual combat conditions. But Elena was beginning to understand that traveling with a no-call sign sniper meant constantly operating at the edge of possibility. The man seemed to thrive in situations where conventional tactics would result in certain death. "One more question," Elena said as they reached their final approach position. "What happens if this doesn't work?" The sniper checked his rifle one last time and looked directly at her. Then, human civilization had better hope that conventional military forces can learn to fight aliens faster than aliens can learn to fight humans. And if they can't, then Earth becomes an alien colony, and our species joins the list of evolutionary dead ends. Elena realized that she had just been given the most honest assessment of their situation that anyone was likely to provide. The fate of human civilization was about to depend on two people, a rifle, and a plan that would have been rejected as impossible by any rational military planning committee. It was exactly the kind of situation that the sniper had built his reputation on resolving. As they began their final approach toward the alien communication hub, neither of them noticed the small reconnaissance drone that had been tracking their movements for the past hour. The aliens had learned more than just tactical countermeasures from their earlier encounters. They had learned to anticipate human psychological patterns and were now several steps ahead of the sniper's decision-making process. The trap was set, and both sides were about to discover just how far they were willing to go to secure victory in a war that would determine the future of two species. Hashtag the jungle invasion. Story part 4. The trap was perfect, and the sniper walked directly into it. He realized his mistake when the jungle around them suddenly fell silent. No insects, no bird calls, nothing but the humid whisper of air moving through leaves. In his years of combat experience, that kind of absolute silence meant only one thing. Predators were close enough to kill everything else into hiding. "Down," he whispered to Elena, but it was already too late. The energy beam that scorched through the air where his head had been a moment before came from a position he had already checked and cleared. The aliens had somehow moved into firing positions without disturbing the jungle environment in any detectable way. More beams followed, carving smoking channels through the vegetation with precision that suggested they knew exactly where their targets were located. The sniper rolled behind a massive buttress root and tried to assess their tactical situation. Elena had taken cover behind a fallen log 10 meters away, her face pale but determined. Around them, alien units were emerging from concealed positions with the fluid coordination of a predator pack closing in for a kill. "They were waiting for us," Elena called out during a brief lull in the energy weapon fire. "I know," the sniper replied, checking his rifle's ammunition count. "The question is how they knew where we would be." Elena examined their surroundings more carefully and made a disturbing discovery. "The biochemical suppressors you gave me, I think they're malfunctioning. I'm reading electromagnetic signatures that shouldn't be there." The sniper cursed silently as he understood what had happened. The alien technology was more sophisticated than human intelligence had realized. They had somehow turned the sniper's own stealth equipment against him, using the devices as tracking beacons while allowing him to believe he was invisible to their sensors. But tactical mistakes could be corrected by superior execution, and the aliens had made their own error by revealing their positions too early. The sniper began moving through the jungle with a fluid precision that had made him legendary, using microterrain and vegetation cover to approach the nearest alien position without exposing himself to crossfire from the other units. His first shot took an alien sniper that had been positioned in a tree canopy 30 meters above ground level. The tungsten round punched through the creature's sensory cluster and sent it tumbling to the forest floor in a cascade of broken branches and alien technology. The bioluminescent patterns on its armor faded to black as it died, but not before transmitting its final observations to the rest of the hunting pack. The aliens adapted immediately. Instead of maintaining static firing positions, they began moving in a complex pattern that kept at least 2 units in position to provide covering fire while the others maneuvered for better angles. Their tactics were becoming more sophisticated with each engagement, as if they were learning from every exchange of fire. Elena watched the battle develop from her concealed position and began to recognize patterns in the alien movements that the sniper couldn't observe from his position. "They're hurting you," she called out. "The movement pattern is designed to force you toward that clearing to your left." The sniper immediately changed direction, but he could see what Elena had identified. The aliens were conducting a sophisticated tactical manipulation designed to force him into a kill zone where their superior firepower would be decisive. They had learned to think like humans, anticipating his psychological responses and tactical preferences. But they had made one crucial miscalculation. They assumed he would fight like a conventional soldier, trying to eliminate all hostile forces through direct engagement. Instead, the sniper did something that no military training manual would have recommended. He charged directly at the strongest alien position. The aliens were so surprised by his aggressive approach that they hesitated for a crucial half-second before responding. That hesitation allowed the sniper to close within effective range and eliminate two more aliens with precisely placed shots that destroyed their primary weapon systems. The surviving aliens began a tactical retreat, but they were no longer coordinating their movements with the same precision they had demonstrated earlier. The death of several pack members had disrupted their distributed intelligence network, creating gaps in their tactical awareness that the sniper could exploit. Elena seized the opportunity to gather more intelligence about alien technology. While the sniper pursued the retreating aliens, she examined the corpses and their equipment with the methodical precision of a research scientist working under combat conditions. What she discovered changed everything. The alien armor wasn't just biotechnological integration. It was a living organism that formed symbiotic relationships with the creatures wearing it. The armor was actually a separate species that had evolved to enhance the combat capabilities of its hosts, creating a biological partnership that explained the aliens' rapid adaptation to new threats. More importantly, Elena identified what appeared to be the armor's primary vulnerability. The symbiotic organisms required specific biochemical signals to maintain their integration with their hosts. Disrupt those signals, and the aliens would lose access to most of their advanced capabilities. "I found something," Elena called out when the sniper returned from his pursuit of the alien survivors. "These aren't just soldiers wearing advanced armor. They're biological partnerships between two different species." The sniper examined Elena's findings and immediately grasped the tactical implications. Can the partnership be disrupted? Potentially, yes. The symbiotic relationship appears to depend on specific pheromone exchanges. If we could introduce competing biochemical signals, we could turn their greatest advantage into a critical weakness, the sniper finished. "Do you have the equipment needed to synthesize the right compounds?" Elena checked her research kit and discovered that she did have the basic tools needed for biochemical analysis. "I can create a crude version of the disruption compound, but I'll need samples from the central command organism to identify the specific molecular structures involved." The sniper looked toward the alien base, now visible through the jungle canopy as a sprawling complex of biotechnological structures. "That means we still need to reach the communication hub." "And now they know we're coming," Elena pointed out. "Actually, that might work in our favor," the sniper said, shouldering his rifle and beginning to move toward the base perimeter. "They've revealed their tactical capabilities, which means I can plan countermeasures. But more importantly, they've committed resources to hunting us instead of protecting their primary facility." Elena understood what he was suggesting. "You want to use ourselves as bait to draw defenders away from the central hub. I want to use their tactical intelligence against them. They've learned to anticipate human behavior, but they're still thinking like a distributed organism. They don't understand individual initiative and tactical improvisation." As they approached the base perimeter, Elena began to appreciate the scope of the challenge they were facing. The alien facility had grown into a sprawling complex that covered nearly 10 square kilometers of jungle. Bioluminescent patterns flowed across the surfaces of the organic buildings like neural activity, creating a visual representation of the command and control processes that coordinated the entire operation. But Elena also noticed something that gave her hope. The growth patterns in the alien structures showed signs of resource stress. The rapid expansion of their facility was consuming biological materials faster than their harvesting operation could replenish them. If the aliens were forced to sustain intensive combat operations while maintaining their construction schedule, they might exhaust their available resources. "They're operating on a tight biological budget," Elena told the sniper as they studied the base layout. "Extended combat operations could force them to choose between military defense and infrastructure development." The sniper smiled grimly as he planned their approach route. "Then, let's make sure they have to make that choice." Their infiltration of the alien base began at sunset, when the bioluminescent communication patterns were most active and could provide cover for their movements. The sniper had developed a technique for moving through hostile territory by mimicking the rhythm and timing of environmental sounds, making his approach nearly indistinguishable from natural forest activity. Elena followed his lead, amazed by the precision required to move through the jungle without disturbing the complex ecosystem around them. The sniper seemed to understand instinctively how to place his feet, where to duck under hanging vines, and when to pause to allow the forest sounds to resume their natural patterns. As they penetrated deeper into the base perimeter, Elena began to observe the alien organizational structure in detail. The creatures moved through their facility with purposeful efficiency, but their activities followed biological rhythms rather than mechanical schedules. The entire base operated like a living organism responding to environmental stimuli and internal metabolic needs. "It's beautiful," Elena whispered as they watched aliens tending to the organic infrastructure like gardeners caring for exotic plants. "It's also vulnerable," the sniper replied, focusing his attention on the central communication hub that towered above the surrounding structures. "Living systems have biological weaknesses that can be exploited if you understand the underlying processes." Elena examined the communication hub more carefully and identified what appeared to be external sensory organs distributed across its surface. Those structures are probably processing electromagnetic signals from throughout the entire facility. If we could disrupt the neural pathways, the whole system would collapse into biological chaos, the sniper finished. "How much of that disruption compound can you synthesize?" Elena calculated the requirements based on her observations of the hub size and complexity. Enough for one attempt, but the delivery method would have to be extremely precise. "We need to introduce the compound directly into the hub's primary circulation system." The sniper studied the approach routes to the communication hub and identified several possibilities. The base of the structure appears to be connected to an underground root system. If we could access that network, we could inject the compound directly into the organism's equivalent of a bloodstream, Elena agreed. But that would require us to penetrate the most heavily defended area of the entire facility. The sniper began moving toward the base of the communication hub with the silent efficiency of an apex predator closing in on its prey. "Dr. Vasquez, in your professional opinion, what happens to a biological organism when its nervous system suddenly stops functioning?" Elena thought about the question as they approached the alien structure. Depending on the complexity of the organism, either immediate death or complete paralysis until normal neural function can be restored. How long would restoration take for something this size? Days, maybe weeks. The biochemical disruption would have to be metabolized before normal function could resume. The sniper nodded with satisfaction. That should be long enough for human military forces to arrive and secure the area. As they reached the base of the communication hub, Elena realized that they were about to attempt something that had never been tried before in human history. The assassination of an alien organism that might be the most complex biological entity ever encountered. The fate of human civilization was about to depend on her ability to synthesize a biochemical weapon using equipment designed for butterfly research. Hashtag the jungle invasion. Story part 5. The biochemical weapon worked better than either of them had dared hope. Elena had managed to synthesize a crude version of the disruption compound using materials salvaged from her research equipment and chemical analysis of the alien tissue samples. The compound was designed to interfere with the pheromone signals that maintained the symbiotic relationship between the aliens and their biotechnological armor systems. But when the sniper injected the compound into the communication hub's root system, something unexpected happened. Instead of simply disrupting local neural functions, the biochemical agent propagated throughout the entire alien facility with devastating efficiency. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Across the sprawling biotechnological complex, alien structures began to convulse and collapse as their living components lost coordination with their technological systems. The bioluminescent communication patterns that had flowed across building surfaces like neural activity flickered and died, leaving the facility in darkness. More importantly, the aliens themselves were affected. Their armor systems began to reject their hosts, separating from alien bodies in ways that left the creatures exposed and vulnerable. Without their technological enhancements, the aliens reverted to their basic biological capabilities, which were far less impressive than their augmented forms had suggested. "It's working," Elena whispered as they watched alien patrols stumbling through their own facility like blind organisms trying to navigate unfamiliar terrain. "The disruption is affecting the entire symbiotic network." The sniper was already moving to exploit the tactical opportunity they had created. Without their advanced sensors and communication systems, the aliens were reduced to basic visual perception and acoustic signaling. For someone with his skills, hunting them would be almost trivially easy. But as he prepared to begin eliminating the disoriented aliens, something made him pause. These creatures were no longer the technologically superior invaders who had devastated Elena's research station. They were confused, frightened beings who had been separated from the biological partners that had defined their entire existence. Elena seemed to read his thoughts. "They're not evil," she said quietly. "They're just following their evolutionary imperatives." This symbiotic relationship probably developed over millions of years as a survival mechanism. The sniper lowered his rifle and considered the situation from a different perspective. If the symbiosis is that fundamental to their biology, then permanent separation could be equivalent to a death sentence. Elena nodded grimly. "We may have just committed genocide on a species level." As they watched the aliens struggle with their transformed circumstances, both Elena and the sniper began to understand that they had stumbled into something far more complex than a simple invasion scenario. The aliens weren't conquerors in the traditional sense. They were refugees desperately seeking biological resources that their own species needed for survival. The harvesting operation, Elena realized, they're not just collecting Earth's genetic diversity for technological advancement. Their symbiotic partners are dying, and they need new biological material to maintain the relationships that keep their civilization functioning. The sniper studied the collapsed alien facility with new understanding. So, this was never really an invasion. It was a rescue mission that went wrong when they encountered human resistance. Elena began to feel the moral weight of what they had accomplished. By successfully defending Earth against alien invasion, they had potentially doomed an entire species to biological extinction. The compound she had synthesized wasn't just disrupting alien technology, it was destroying relationships that had taken eons to evolve. But before either of them could fully process the ethical implications of their actions, new sounds began to emerge from the jungle around them. The deep rumble of military helicopters approaching from multiple directions, followed by the distinctive whine of jet engines conducting low-altitude reconnaissance flights. Human military forces the sniper identified. Someone finally took Dr. Vasquez's distress signal seriously. Elena activated her emergency beacon and began transmitting their location to the incoming aircraft. Within minutes, the first military helicopters were landing in the clearings around the alien facility, disgorging special operations teams equipped for combat against unknown threats. Colonel Morrison arrived with the second wave of aircraft, leading a joint task force that included representatives from multiple intelligence agencies and scientific organizations. When he saw the collapsed alien facility and the disoriented creatures wandering through the wreckage of their biotechnological complex, he immediately understood that the tactical situation had changed dramatically. Secure the perimeter and establish a containment zone, Morrison ordered his field commanders. No hostile action against the aliens unless they demonstrate active aggression. This appears to be a first contact scenario rather than a combat situation. Elena emerged from the jungle with the sniper, both of them exhausted but alive. Morrison studied the unnamed operative who had somehow managed to neutralize an entire alien invasion force with minimal resources and no official support. Asset 47, Morrison said, using the only designation he had for the sniper. Your mission parameters have changed. We need you to help establish communication protocols with the surviving aliens. The sniper looked toward the collapsed facility where alien survivors were beginning to emerge from the wreckage. They're not hostile anymore, Colonel. Without their symbiotic armor, they're essentially helpless. Elena approached one of the disoriented aliens with scientific curiosity overriding her previous fear. Up close, without the intimidating biotechnological enhancements, The creature was surprisingly fragile. Its natural biology was adapted for a low-gravity environment with minimal atmosphere pressure. The symbiotic armor had not just provided technological capabilities. It had allowed the aliens to survive in Earth's hostile environment. They need help, Elena told Morrison. The biochemical disruption that disabled their technology is probably killing them slowly. Without their armor systems, they can't process Earth's atmosphere effectively. Morrison made a decision that would change the course of human history. Instead of treating the aliens as defeated enemies, he ordered his medical teams to provide emergency biological support to prevent them from suffocating in Earth's dense atmosphere. Over the following hours, human scientists and alien survivors began working together to establish basic communication protocols. The aliens, it turned out, had been desperately seeking biological materials that could restore their dying symbiotic relationships. Their own planet was suffering from an ecological collapse that threatened to destroy the complex biological partnerships that their entire civilization depended on. Elena found herself serving as a translator between human biology and alien biochemistry, helping both species understand how their different evolutionary paths had led to the current crisis. The aliens possessed incredibly advanced biotechnology, but they had become so dependent on their symbiotic partners that they couldn't adapt when those relationships began to fail. They're not invaders, Elena explained to the assembled military and scientific leaders. They're refugees. Their entire species is facing extinction unless they can find biological solutions to their symbiosis crisis. The sniper listened to Elena's translation work and began to understand that his role in this conflict was far from over. The immediate tactical threat had been neutralized, but the larger strategic implications were just beginning to emerge. Humanity had just made contact with a technologically advanced alien species that possessed biological capabilities that could revolutionize human medicine and environmental science. What do they want from us? Morrison asked through Elena. The alien response, translated through Elena's growing understanding of their biochemistry, was surprisingly simple. Partnership. Your planet's biological diversity contains solutions to problems that our species has been unable to solve. In exchange, we can provide technological advances that will allow your species to expand beyond your current environmental limitations. Elena realized that they were being offered the opportunity to join a galactic community based on biological cooperation rather than technological domination. The aliens weren't trying to conquer Earth. They were trying to save both species through collaborative evolution. The sniper found himself in an unusual position. For the first time in his career, he had been part of an operation that ended with negotiation rather than elimination. The skills that had made him one of the most dangerous humans alive were now being redirected toward protecting a peace process that could benefit both species. Dr. Vasquez, the lead alien representative, communicated through Elena's translation. Your biochemical weapon was remarkably sophisticated for such a young species. We would be honored to learn from your scientific methods. Elena looked around at the human military forces surrounding the collapsed alien facility and realized that they were witnessing the beginning of a new era for human civilization. The invasion that had started as humanity's greatest threat was transforming into humanity's greatest opportunity. The sniper shouldered his rifle for what he hoped would be the last time in this particular conflict. Colonel Morrison, he said, I think my services here are no longer required. Morrison nodded, but his expression suggested that he understood the larger implications of what had just occurred. SF-47, something tells me that this is just the beginning. If there's one alien species facing biological extinction, there are probably others. And not all of them are likely to be as cooperative as these refugees. Elena continued her translation work, but she found herself thinking about the broader implications of human-alien cooperation. Earth's biological diversity was apparently valuable enough to attract interstellar attention, which meant that other species might arrive seeking similar resources. The next visitors might not be as desperate or as willing to negotiate. As the sun set over the Amazon rainforest, human and alien scientists began the delicate process of establishing protocols for biological cooperation that would benefit both species. The aliens offered to share their biotechnology in exchange for access to Earth's genetic resources, creating possibilities for medical and environmental advances that could solve some of humanity's most pressing challenges. But Elena and the sniper both understood that they had also created new vulnerabilities for human civilization. The galaxy was apparently full of species with advanced technology and desperate needs. Earth's biological wealth made it a target for future contact, and not all of that contact would be as peaceful as the current negotiations. The no-call-sign sniper began planning for conflicts that hadn't happened yet, because experience had taught him that the most dangerous threats were always the ones that nobody expected. Humanity had just learned that it wasn't alone in the universe, and that knowledge came with responsibilities that could prove either transformative or catastrophic. In the distance, more aircraft were arriving to establish a permanent research facility around the alien contact site. Scientists from around the world were being summoned to participate in the most important biological research project in human history. The invasion had ended, but the real adventure was just beginning. Elena looked at the sniper one last time before he disappeared back into the jungle that had served as their battlefield. "Will we see you again?" The sniper paused at the edge of the clearing and looked back at the remarkable scientist who had helped him save two species through a combination of courage, intelligence, and biochemical innovation. "Dr. Vasquez," he said quietly, "something tells me that humanity is going to need people like us more than ever in the years ahead. The galaxy is a big place, and not everyone out there is going to be as reasonable as our new partners." Elena watched him vanish into the jungle darkness and knew that he was right. The successful resolution of the Amazon incident would probably attract attention from other alien species who might not be willing to negotiate for what they wanted. But for now, humanity had gained its first alien allies and taken its first steps toward joining a galactic community. The future was uncertain, but it was no longer lonely. The invasion was over. The real adventure was just beginning.